art can be a difficult thing for most people, but we hope to change all that today with expert tips that will have you hanging your own wall art like a pro in no time. Welcome to SoFlo Home Project. I'm Alena Capra. So picking out the right wall art is only part of the equation of getting the entire home decor right in your room. The other half of that is getting the right measurements and hanging it properly at the right height. Today we get expert advice on the most accurate way to measure before hanging art on your walls, the proper hardware for each frame, creating a gallery wall, and so much more. So we're joined today by Matt Leach, who is an expert in fine art installation. But Matt, you're pretty much sort of a jack of all trades. You could hang just about anything.
Anything that's framed, I can hang it.
So there you go. So Matt, let's jump right in to I think one of our most asked questions we get. Where do we even start when it comes to hanging a piece of art over a furniture piece like the sofa? Because I think this is the most common setup in any living room in any home. How high is too high?
Firstly, you want to take it step by step. Don't worry about the height just yet. First, you've got to find your center point. When hanging art over some type of furniture, you definitely want to center it on the furniture, not the wall. If there is no furniture, then you work from the wall and center it that way.
And this is why our art is always one of the last things we do in our home decor installations, because you can't really hang some stuff until you have the piece there.
Exactly. And then once you've got that center, then you can start thinking about the height.
Now, thinking about the height, some sofas have lower backs than others. So what is that range?
Generally, you want to be 10 to 12 inches above the top of the furniture.
Okay.
But that could change depending on the furniture, like you mentioned. This is a very relaxed couch. It's not, for instance, a dining chair, which is a little more upright. Then you might want to go to 15 inches.
So I guess we got to look at all functions of the furniture as well,
yes,
because that might block the art. So would you say, Matt, that it's sort of, you go by the rules, but you sort of gauge it based on the actual piece of furniture and the look of the home itself?
You start off with the basic principles, and then every home, every location is different, and these factors then play into consideration of where it's going to go.
So Matt, as an expert, I know you could probably walk into a room and tell when something looks off. What are some things where you know it's just like wrong?
Generally, people will always go on the lower side and hang a little too low.
Okay.
So the rule of thumb, the gallery standard, is the 60 inches on center. So you can always double check.
So that's 60 inches from the floor to the center
of the piece. Yeah. Also, you can just, by looking, if you're craning your neck too far upwards,
it's too high,
or
right?
too far down, you're obviously, something's gone wrong.
So that's an easy way to check it. To our viewers at home that may not work in this type of field and know what something will look like before they hang it, what do you suggest? Blue tape? How do we mark it out to make sure we got the height just right and that we like the look of the piece?
We'll hold a piece in place and then have a second person, or the homeowner or the gallery owner, look at it and decide then.
You have to hold it up.
Yes, and then once you've held it up, you can mark it with a bit of blue tape or just painter's tape, and then you have a starting point to begin the hanging process.
Coming up on SoFlo Home Project, we have expert measuring and art hanging techniques.
There are a lot of new homeowners right now, which means there's a lot of folks that really want to get projects done to their home. We're going to give you a few tips that's going to help you make the best decisions for you and your family on today's SoFlo Home Project.
Welcome back to SoFlo Home Project. We are talking about all things wall art, from getting the right height to hanging it properly with our expert, Matt Leach. Matt, so before the break, we talked a little bit about getting the right height for art over major pieces of furniture like the sofa. In this case, this is a little bit different than the standards we talked about. What's different when you're hanging something where there's not a piece of furniture underneath?
Yes, as we discussed, 60 on center would be the average and optimal height. But again, features and fixtures in the home can alter this. Here we've had to go a little bit higher. 60-inch would be about here, but we had to raise it up because otherwise the bottom of the piece will be sat just above this chair rail. And you don't want to crowd the piece, you want to give it space. Obviously we've centered it on the wall again, bearing in mind any light switches and outlets that are around.
In this particular case, you had mentioned we have switches, we've got casings, we got a lot of elements within the architecture of the home and to work with to fit this properly. Would a bigger piece, the scale gets a little bit too tight with all the other elements, right?
Yes, I think one thing to bear in mind, just because it fits doesn't necessarily mean it's a good fit.
This kind of gets too tight in the space.
Yeah, it does fit, but bearing in mind you have a light fixture right there.
Right.
And also this frame is a little bigger, so it's going to be sticking out more.
Definitely has more depth, for sure.
And it would just be a little bit too much for the space that we've got.
So you don't want it cramped and you don't want it floating out without any connection to anything above it.
Yes.
So, okay, so those are some great things. Now we're going to get into the good stuff, which is how to actually hang it properly. But first, let's check out and see what Tack Renata from FHIA has for us today.
In meeting with this new homeowner, we recognize that there's a lot of folks, especially right now in this hot real estate market, who just purchased the new home and is looking now that they're in the home to do some home remodeling and to change some things and make things better. So giving you a couple ideas and a couple tips of some things to look for so that when you're ready to make that decision, you're really educated and you're making the best decision for you and your new home. So we always start with the front entry door because it's something that obviously you use a lot coming in and out of the home, and it's something that's a real vital part of protecting your home. Does it open and close properly? Is it sealed properly? Does it allow air to come in? Does it allow moisture to come in? Is it hurricane rated? Is something really important? Do we feel safe? Do we feel secure from somebody potentially breaking in? From a cosmetic standpoint, there's some reasons to address the front door, also from some functionality and as well as hurricane protection and safety. We like to start with the front door and then walk around the perimeter to help homeowners assess what they have once we get here. So like right now, this door is a French door, which obviously swings out. Depending on what this family's planning on doing with the patio, we may suggest to change to a sliding glass door, which would give them more patio space because this takes away a few feet where you can't put furniture. We also want to recognize if there's small children in the house, because once you put in a really heavy hurricane impact door, a lot of times if the wind catches this, it's dangerous for small children that could be running behind, so we want to make sure that that's safe. These are all a couple things that we like to talk about and really get a feel for what we're trying to accomplish, and not only right now, but try to think ahead so that we're making the right decision when we make this investment. Also, it's so important, we've stressed it in the past, how important it is to meet with a contractor and have a really good consultation, ask a lot of questions and make sure you're getting the answers that are best for you and your family. And let's make sure that we can fit it into your budget so you can afford everything that you're trying to get done. Back to you, Alena.
Thanks, Tat. So Matt, now I think the hard part, picking out the art may be hard for some people, but for others, hanging it properly is half the battle, right?
Exactly, yes.
But there's a lot of different hardware that might be installed on the art piece.
And it'll be one of three items. It'll be either be wire, which we have here, or D-rings, which some people call the loops, but these are D-rings. Or if it's a smaller, maybe a photo frame, it'll have these little sawtooth. Depending on what you've got on the frame will dictate what hanging hardware you're going to use.
Okay, so that makes the most sense because some of these you may just be able to do with a hammer and nail, and the other you may need the drill.
Yes.
I try to stick with the hammer and nail stuff, so we're going to let you talk about all the tools required.
The most common would be a hook. Generally, they'll come in 3 or 4 different sizes.
And that's all of what we got right here.
Ranging from 20 pounds to 30, 50, or 75, or even up to 100. It's a lot easier. You're not punching holes in the wall. If something goes wrong, you need to change it. It's just a small nail hole and you can easily patch it, move on.
And that's what I love, because with the hooks, there's a lot more room for error, like you said, and adjustments. We've got a piece over here that is hung on hooks, but has D-rings on the back. So I thought that'd be a good way to segue into the next type of hardware.
D-rings are good. You do have to be a little more exact with your measurements, but gives a lot more stability to the piece.
So that definitely will not sway, but if those measurements are not right, you're gonna have a leveling issue.
Yes, you do need to be quite accurate, but it will hold the piece perfectly level as long as your measurements are level, and there will be no swaying or swinging.
That's great. Now, so we've got something up on the wall here that also
Yes.
has the D-rings.
Yeah, this is hung on hooks and D-rings. Would you like to take a look?
This down. I'll let you handle the art. You are
Okay.
the expert. I do not want to drop it. So we've got these basic hooks here. How
Yes.
do you simplify the process of hanging these hooks?
Well, first step, remember we had the piece and we decided we wanted it about 6-7 inches above the chair rail. You want to
So we're going to mark
that
our height.
Yep.
Okay.
And we're going to find the center of the wall. So if you can hold that up.
From casing to casing, right?
Yep. Right here. Then we said we wanted it 7 inches vertically.
Here.
This is going to be our starting point. Now we're going to measure from the bottom of the piece to the top of the hardware. Is 36 inches. And there we go.
Okay, so we got our bottom.
Bottom.
And we've got our hanging, the top
Height.
of the hanging D-ring.
Yes. The next step, we want to find the distance from the two D-rings.
Center to center.
Yep.
Okay.
These we can mark on pencil in the wall because that's where we're actually going to be putting a nail in the wall.
Well, and then the important part is when we're marking that, it's the bottom of that hook, not the top where the nail
Exactly,
goes.
yes. So this is basically an imaginary T. We're going to be level because we checked that with the measurements from every point.
This is perfect. This is how you get the right height hung properly one time. Of course, you are our expert, and thank you for sharing all of that advice with us.
It's been my pleasure, and I hope some of it helps.
It definitely did. A lot less holes in the walls of South Florida because of you.
There we go.
Thanks, Matt. Coming up next, tips on pairing artwork to create a gallery wall or an art grouping. Welcome back to SoFlo Home Project. I'm Alena Capra, and we are continuing sharing tips on hanging artwork in your own home, but like a pro. So when it comes to our next topic, the gallery wall is one thing that is very easy to get wrong or to have questions about. So we're here today at Oliver Gal's headquarters in Hollywood, Florida, joined by Ana Sanchez Gal, the co-founder and CEO of Oliver Gal. Ana, welcome to SoFlo Home Project.
Thank you so much.
So we're excited to be here today because our viewers most often ask, like, how do we decorate with art? What are the rules when hanging art? And I feel like in this particular gallery of your headquarters is one of the best places to start.
Thank you. Yeah, it can feel very intimidating at first, but it's very easy.
So tell us a little bit first about the background of Oliver Gal.
Lola and I founded the brand and developed this very awesome and amazing and edgy brand of art for collectors that did not necessarily have the means or the will to pay the high-priced ticket items that you see at our galleries.
And as a designer, I am familiar with your stuff, and you guys have really like fashion-forward, fun pieces, something for everyone. So I think our viewers are really going to appreciate this. Anna, let's start with maybe the difference between what a gallery wall is and how you kind of go about attacking that in your decor versus perhaps a grouping of art to hang on your walls.
Sure. For example, what we have here, this would be a grouping where you have something that matches or that has similar type of frames, similar proportions and dimensions, and it fills a space on top of a sofa
perfect here.
or in a bedroom. A gallery wall, on the other hand, is something that you would do with different type of frames, different themes.
So it all works. And I think the gallery wall is perfect for that eclectic mix, like you're mentioning, right?
Yes, it's all about having fun and about expressing your personality through your art. And don't be afraid to mix it up. It's, you know, different types of frames and dimensions, everything works. Typically, you want to be able to fill about 2/3 of the space of the wall. So what is fun with a gallery wall is that you can start sort of a collection and you can build it up and
just
keep
grow
adding
with
to
that.
it. Yeah, exactly. And with a grouping, same thing. You want to fill most of the space or about 2/3 of the space, and you want it to be at around eye level so that you're not looking up to too high or you're not looking down
So
too
this
high,
right here
too
is
low.
sort of perfect because it's maybe about a foot above the top of the sofa.
Yeah. Experiment with what you have at home. Go with your gut. If something doesn't look right, just take it off, put something else.
So Anna, I think the gallery wall is an amazing way to display eclectic art, but I think sometimes one of the hardest things is figuring out the spacing. Are there some rules you could share with our viewers?
If it's something like a diptych or a grouping, because it's usually the same image, you want to hang them pretty close together, maybe leaving a few inches in between.
Okay.
Now, if you're doing something like a gallery wall, then you can space them out as much as you want. If right now you don't have as many pieces, you may want to space them out a little bit more. And then as you grow your collection, then you can go ahead and start hanging them a little bit closer together and just increase that grouping. You know, if you're a little bit computer savvy, you could even take a photo of the space, put it into Photoshop or some other editing software, and you could just plug the images there and see, oh, do I like this one? Do I substitute this one for this other? So those are some tricks that you can do.
That is a great tip, and I think the perfect way to really visualize the gallery wall in your space.
Yeah, and then my favorite tip would be get a group of friends, have some drinks, alcoholic or not, your choice, and then just ask them, hey, how do I do this one? Do you like this photo better than the other, or this piece of art better than the other? And just have fun with it.
It's great to sometimes have the opinion of others, whether it's in person or even these days on Zoom. You could have a little Zoom happy hour and showcase your gallery wall.
Exactly. Yeah.
Nice, fun way to do it. Next on SoFlo Home Project, artwork layout tips that will keep you from adding those unnecessary holes to your walls. Welcome back to SoFlo Home Project. I'm Alena Capra, and we are sharing tips on hanging wall art in your home. And I think this next one is a good one if you're thinking about doing something with multiple canvases or multiple frames. There is a way to make it a little easier to get it all right and have a lot less holes in your wall. So check out this next segment, which is one of my favorite ways to lay it all out and get it right. So the first thing I want to show you guys is how to create a gallery wall. It's usually a great solution if you don't have the proper size artwork to fit above your sofa, or if the ceilings are very high and you've got a lot of wall space to fill in between. Gallery walls are a perfect way because the size is pretty much endless, because you could add more frames, you could take them out, and get the perfect size configuration in any home. The hardest part about a gallery wall is laying it out. So I'm going to show you some ways to simply set that up on the floor here. So what I like to do is, if you're placing it over a sofa, and this goes for any artwork, I always like to kind of just mark the height with some blue tape, because you may want to move this out of the way to have a place to work when you're hanging them. In this case, I'm just going to fake it because the sofa's actually right here. And the next thing I like to do is to sort of measure from there to the ceiling height, the space I have available, and then we're going to mark that out on the floor. I have about 76 inches to work with. So I am going to mark out 76 inches here. And then for the width, again, I'm not going to go the whole way. I'm just going to measure the area where I want to place it, just so I have a guide. This rug is a pretty good guide because that's almost my width that I have to work in, so there I'm fine. So I'm just going to use the level. Again, you can use blue tape to mark it off, but sometimes a nice brighter visual object helps just as easily. What we're going to do here, it's really like a puzzle. This allows you to sit, rearrange, move certain things out, so you're not making a lot of holes in your wall. You definitely don't want a Swiss cheese effect going on with nail holes all over the place. So you could be a little safer by setting it up here. So I've set up one of the first options where you can do the multiple canvases, and then you could easily translate it right into hanging on the wall. So here we're gonna have 3 rows, and again, when you hang these, you need a level because we wanna make sure all of your rows are absolutely in line. And now just a quick tip, when you are doing these multiple configurations in a gallery wall, it's no rhyme or reason of how much space is really going between, but when you have neat rows where it's all lined up, you want to make sure you have the same amount of space between each row. So it is important. It really creates this continuity on the entire piece. It makes it feel like one large piece of art. So here I've set up a different configuration to go higher if you really have higher ceilings and you want to get more height. This type of thing would be really great to fill the space of a blank wall, say in a large hallway area or in a foyer, where if you don't have furniture underneath and you want to go extra high, these multiple rows will do that. We hope that you guys enjoyed our professional advice on how to hang wall art in your own home. And now check out what design inspiration we have planned for you next week on SoFlo Home Project. We explore the beauty of a farmhouse elegant design as we visit a 10-acre property that feels like a true South Florida Western home. Well, we thank you guys for joining us, and we hope to see you again next week for another episode of SoFlo Home Project right here on Local 10. And remember, there's no place like SoFlo Home. If you missed any part of this episode, or if you're looking for more design inspiration, make sure to check out all episodes online at SoFloShows.com. And don't forget to follow us on social media on Facebook and Instagram.